week 3 of the fantasy football season, and he has top 12 defense DST units. I'm ranking this week the first one, the Dallas Cowboys. So far, this Cowboy team's been the best defense in pro football in the first 2 weeks of the season. Week 1, shutting out the Giants in that one, and they scored a crazy over 30 fantasy points. And then week 2 versus the New York Jets, holding them to 10 points and causing 4 turnovers. So this week here, they could have at least 3 or 4 turnovers once again at the Arizona Cardinals, one of the worst teams in the league. I know the Cardinals the first 2 weeks of the season had fought and played pretty decent football, but I think Joshua Dobbs is going to be in for a long day, and with this Cowboy pass rush and the secondary as well right now, I think they could be the number 1 unit once again this week here is Dallas. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers to the Niners. They got the mentioned New York Giants coming to town here on Thursday Night Football, and this New York Giant team, so far the first 6 quarters of the season, they didn't score. And then all of a sudden, second half of that ball game at Arizona, their offense came alive and they had a big ball game. But anyway, this San Francisco pass rush, led by Nick Bosa, is going to be a problem, obviously, in this one. Their secondary is great. Linebacker with Fred Warner leading the way is great as well. And it's going to be a long day for this weak offensive line for the Giants, in my opinion, for Daniel Jones and them, like it was in week 1. And especially looks like Saquon Barkley's most likely going to be out, even though there's a chance he possibly could play. This 49er team's going to feast, and I got him at 2. Number 3, the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, their DST, so far in the early going, week 1 had a great game, and then week 2, they didn't really do much versus the Cincinnati Bengals. But right here, they got a great matchup versus the young Indianapolis Colts team, where it looks like Gardner Minshew has a possibility of being the starter after Anthony Richardson was in concussion protocol so far in the early going this week. But even if it's Richardson or Gardner Minshew, I think this defense is going to feast in this one. It's another home game for this Baltimore team where their defense, it seems like throughout the years, has played better at home. And this week, I think they have a big ball game. And I got them at 3. Number 4, the New York Jets. So this Jet defense, last week they heard a lot of criticism, obviously, after Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys made easy work of this Jet defense. And Sauce Gardner not really covering CeeDee Lamb that whole ball game. But anyway, they got a good matchup here versus the New England Patriots. Their offense doesn't really have that many great weapons over there in New England. I know they got Ramondre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne. He's not really that much of a number 1 wide receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster so far, he hasn't looked good at all. And it's pretty much been Hunter Henry and Stevenson, the 2 main guys in this offense. But I think this Jet defense is going to play a good ball game. I think this game could be in the mid-teens to low 20s between these division rivals. We saw it last season where it was a grinded-out ball game between these 2 teams. And I think the Jets here at home, they know it's a big ball game, and they play well, at least on the defensive side of things. So I got them at 4. Number 5, the New England Patriots. So the New England Patriots here at the New York Jets. This is going to be a defensive battle, like I mentioned. This Jet team, they definitely took a huge step back offensively once again when Rodgers out for the season. Going back to Zach Wilson last season, he didn't look good at all before they replaced him with Mike White. And I think this Patriot team, they can have a good scheme in this one and get pressure on Wilson early and often. And you know Wilson's good for at least 2 or 3 turnovers per ball game. So I think New England in this one, they're going to create turnovers. They're going to hold it to a low score. And I got them at 5. Number 6, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs defense, they got Chris Jones back last week after he held out all the training camp in week 1. And they paid the man after losing to the Detroit Lions in week 1. So right now, they got a good matchup here versus the Chicago Bears, one of the worst offensive lines in all pro football. And right here, Chris Jones, he could get to Justin Fields early and often, because Justin Fields, he's going back to old habits he did earlier last season before he broke out in the second half. So holding on to the football too much is Justin Fields, trying to make too many plays with his legs. And I think that's where he's going to get trouble in this ball game here versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think this Chief team's going to make, obviously, this Chicago Bear team one-dimensional, where they know they're going to have to throw the football if the Chiefs get off to an early 10, 14-point lead. So this week here with a good matchup and a quarterback in Justin Fields who turns the ball over a decent amount and has taken some big sacks so far this season. I got him at 6. Number 7, the Buffalo Bills. So the Bills here travel to the Washington Commanders. In this Bill defense, week 1, they played great defense versus the New York Jets. And then week 2, pretty great defense as well, shutting down Josh Jacobs. From Devontae Adams, he didn't really get loose in that one as well, besides that touchdown early in the ball game. So this week here, Washington, I think they're going to get pressure on Sam Howell early and often. Even though Howell and this Commander team is 2-0, they pretty much beat up on 2 bad teams, Arizona in week 1. I know it was a great comeback at the Denver Broncos, but that Denver Bronco team really isn't all that great as well. So right here, I think the Bills defense goes in there in Washington, takes care of business and has a good ball game. And I got them at 7. Number 8, the Seattle Seahawks. So the Seahawks as a streaming option and a 1-week play here is a great option versus the Carolina Panthers, who we know is one of the worst offenses in the league. And this Panther team really doesn't have anything on offense that's going to scare opposing defenses. We know they got Bryce Young, the young quarterback. So far, he's looked all right in the first 2 ball games. We're pretty much Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo. And then in the backfield, you got Sanders and a tight end, Hayden Hurst. The offense really isn't going to scare anyone. Seahawks, last week, they did give up a lot of points, but they did find the end zone as well on a pick 6, had a couple turnovers and sacks. And I think this week here, with the 12th man, especially in Seattle, versus a pretty weak Carolina offense, they have a good ball game. And I got them at 8. Number 9, the Philadelphia Eagles. So this Eagle defense, they've been not as good as I thought they would be in the early going. They've given up big plays in the first 2 weeks of the season. New England hung around versus them in week 1, where we know this Patriot offense isn't all that great. And last week here, they were up 20 points at one point versus the Minnesota Vikings. But Kirk Cousins and that offense drove down the field pretty quick as well. So this week here at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they got to get pressure on Baker Mayfield early and often. And this Buc offense has been playing good on the Baker. They're 2-0 as well, but I think the Eagles go in to Tampa Bay, get pressure on Baker early. The offensive line isn't all that great, and to be honest, they really haven't versed a good defense so far as Tampa Bay. So this will be a tough test for Tampa, no doubt. And I think this Eagle team, after hearing the noise all week as well, where their defense isn't as good as it was last season, I think they buckle down in this one, make some plays, get to Baker. And I got them at 9. Number 10, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jaguars as a 1-week streaming option as well, another good matchup here versus the Houston Texans. That's a young offense. CJ Stroud, I think, is going to be a decent quarterback in this league, though. But this Jaguar defense, after a tough week last week losing, where their defense did play good in terms of giving up points to a high-powered offense like Kansas City, I think they buckle down even more versus the Houston Texans and have a good matchup and a good ball game here, where they could get a few sacks, maybe a couple turnovers, and hold them to the mid-teens, low 20s in this one. So I got them at 10. Number 11, the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns have the Tennessee Titans coming to town here. And this Tennessee team, besides Derrick Henry, they're not much of a threat. I know they got DeAndre Hopkins, but him and Tannehill really aren't on the same page. And he's been trying to force feed Hopkins. And Denzel Ward most likely will be on Hopkins a majority of this ball game, where we know he's one of the better corners in the league. And with Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett, this is a pretty solid defense, in my opinion, over there for this Brown team. And now they got to play better defense, especially with Nick Chubb out. This defense, they could use a couple turnovers. I think this week Tannehill's good for 1 or 2 turnovers. This ball game I could see in the low 20s between these two teams. And I got the Browns at 11, and the 12th and final defense DST unit I'm ranking this week here is the Miami Dolphins. So the Dolphins, I know their defense isn't all that great. I know Jalen Ramsey's still out. You got Bradley Chubb on that defensive line. I think he caused havoc in this ball game. And this Denver offense, they turn the ball over a lot in the early going. Even though I know Russell Wilson's been playing a little bit better, but we saw this Washington Commander defense make a few plays in that Week 2 ball game. So right here in the Dolphins home opener, I think the defense comes out, has a good ball game. They played a decent one versus at the New England Patriots in Week 2. And right here this week here, I got them at 12, so that's the top 12 defense DST units I'm ranking here for Week 3 of the fantasy football season.